of the Embassy of the State of the Palestine in Jakarta. Our second guest is the honorary Mr. Yon Machmudi, PhD, one of PCINU or Nahdlatul Ulama International Branch in Australia, New Zealand in 2005. Mr. Yon Machmudi is also currently the head of graduate program, Middle East and Islamic Studies, Universitas Indonesia. So, ladies and gentlemen, to discuss further, I invite our first speaker for today's session, Mr. Yon Machmudi, PhD, to deliver the introduction about our today's topic. To Mr. Yon Machmudi, PhD, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, moderator. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
His Excellency Mr. Muamar Musthafa Hasan and all the audience.
The volume is up, but no, he was talking very well, very clear.
Okay, is it clear my
but
voice?
Suddenly it's hidden. His voice is hidden.
Yes, sir, your voice is hidden.
Okay, thank you very much. Then let me.
Mas, suaranya kecil ya, Mas?
Start.
Di kami suaranya terdengar jelas, Pak.
Ya, masuk.
Okay.
The voice is not clear. Very low, very low.
Udah digedein?
Okay, is it clear right now?
Sorry, I think there is a voice problem in Mr. Muammar's device.
Okay, then can I continue, right?
Yes, sir. You can continue the presentation.
Okay, then let me share the PowerPoint regarding the issue Nahdlatul Ulama and Palestinian struggle. I appreciate this event because this is a very important event for us to understand the position of Nahdlatul Ulama regarding the struggle of Palestinian independence. So we can see from historical perspective, first there is a statement by Kiai Abdul Wahab Hasbullah during the Mu'tamar, the 30th Mu'tamar in Banten, that he clearly stated that the assistance provided by the committee in Indonesia regarding the Palestinian issues was not enough satisfied. So in order to respond this issue at the time, and the Nahdlatul Ulama create what they call as the committee to intermediate and to give the assistance to the Muslim in Palestine. Then the committee or the member of Nahdlatul Ulama obligate on his own effort to collect financial assistance from his or their own income to be given to the committee of the NO in order to be given to the people who need it in this time, the Palestinian to support the Palestinian struggle for independence. So it is very clear, during the Mu'tamar Nahdlatul Ulama in 1938, the statement of Kiai Haji Abdul Wahab regarding the order to all the members of the Nahdlatul Ulama to support the struggle of the Palestinian people by collecting financial assistance to be given to their fellow brothers in Palestine. And there is also, we see the historical evidence in one of the Nahdlatul Ulama newspaper that show the importance of the Nahdlatul Ulama effort, to use certain month of Rajab as part of the week of solidarity to the Palestinian people at the time in 1938. It was at the time the Indonesia actually still under the Dutch colonial occupation, but the Muslim, in particular Nahdlatul Ulama, already give support to the struggle of the Palestinian at the time. So in November 1938, the National Committee of the Nahdlatul Ulama instructed all Nahdlatul Ulama branches in Indonesia to collect the charity for the Palestinian orphan and widows. So in Indonesian language, the instruction we can read as di seluruh cabang Nahdlatul Ulama. So the whole branches of Nahdlatul Ulama are instructed, diperintahkan to carry out this decision, to mengidarkan celengan damai, means to circulate all the possible charity for widows, orphans in Palestine. During and within the Majlis, or called Rajabiyah. Rajabiyah in the month of the Rajab in this year. So the Nahdlatul Ulama in 1938 declared what they call as the month of the in the month of the Rajab as the Majlis of Rajabiyah in full weeks, in 1 week, to collect the donation in order to be given to the Palestinian people. But because at the time Indonesia was not free country, is not independent country, and still under the colonialization of the Dutch government, then the charity program received many obstacles and resistance from the Dutch colonial government. Why? Because the Dutch colonial government, I think, saw that this effort could bring the solidarity among the Muslims, in particular under Dutch colonial, to free themselves, as a spirit to free themselves from the colonialization. So regarding the week of the Nahdlatul Ulama called as the Rajabiyah, the program, special program for support the Palestinian people in the month of the Rajab, and use 1 week full for give our attention, Nahdlatul Ulama attention, to the people of Palestinians. And the chairman of the Nahdlatul Ulama at the time, the people of Nahdlatul Ulama, the follower of Nahdlatul Ulama and the Nahdien, also recited the Kunut Nazila in every Fardu prayer during the week of the Rajabiyah. During the month of the Rajab, it started 27 of the Rajab. So every prayer, not only subuh prayer, but each prayer in the 5 prayer, the member of the Nahdlatul Ulama should read and recite the Qunut Nazila, asking help from the God in order to support their brother in Palestine. And the week of Rajab actually was held every Rajab 27th, which combined the celebration of the Isra Mi'raj and the solidarity for the Palestinians. Why the Rajab is chosen? Because in 2027 of the Rajab, we Indonesians celebrate the Isra Mi'raj. Yeah. When we understand that there are 2 holy cities, Mecca and also the holy mosque, Al-Haram and Al-Aqsa, is part a very important part for holy mosque for Muslim in the world, because at the time the Prophet Muhammad also did the Isra from the Masjid al-Haram into Masjid al-Aqsa. So this moment become very important for the Muslim, and Nahdlatul Ulama took initiative to use the month of the Rajab, in particularly into 27 of Rajab, in 1 week full, to be used as the month and the week of the solidarity for the Palestinian. Even though the Muslim, the Nahdiyin, the Nahdlatul Ulama member at the time, still under the occupation of the Dutch colonial rulers. So the Qunut Nazila in 1938, as the National Committee of Nahdlatul Ulama instructed all the member, all the Muslim, to recite the Qunut Nazila for the Palestinian in every Fardu prayers. And the Dutch colonial government responded to the initiative of Nahdlatul Ulama as the political meaning for the independence of the Palestinian. So it is suspect not only supported for the independence of the Palestinian, but suspected by the Dutch also consists of the spirit of independence for Indonesia, because Indonesia was not yet independent. So Dutch colonial afraid that this spirit could bring the solidarity among the Muslims at the time to free themselves from the colonialization. Then the chairman of Nahdlatul Ulama at the time, called by the regent of the Surabaya when the order was issued, and told that the government banned and forbid, for the Muslim to recite the Qunut Nazila and also to carry out the week of the Rajabiyah. So this initiative was banned by the Dutch colonial at the time. So in Mu'tamar and Congress in 1939, the Rais Am, the general leader of the Nahdlatul Ulama, Hadratul Sheikh K. Hazim As'ari, clarified that the Qunut Nazila, which recited by Nahdiyin, was not intended to insult other religions. So there is no problem with the other religions, as what was accused that the Qunut Nazila also intended to insult other religion. At the time, the religion of the government or Dutch colonial at the time is the Christian or Nasrani, but it is an obligation of solidarity among the Muslims. So it is only the solidarity of the Muslim. But of course, the Dutch colonial at the time afraid that this could be used for solidarity for the Muslim in Indonesia also to gain independence. And of course, we see the effort of Nahdlatul Ulama for independence, not only during our independence, but also continue until Indonesian independence and until now. The consistently the Nahdlatul Ulama support full independence of the Palestinians, in the era of the chairman of Abdurrahman Wahid, or the chairman of Hasim Muzadi, or the chairman of PH.D. Said Agil Sirot. Those support continue till now. In Muamar Nahdlatul Ulama, just 5 years ago in Jombang, for instance, the Nahdlatul Ulama firmly supported the Palestinian independence and opposed the Israel occupation in Palestine. So it is very clear in the recommendation from the National Congress of the Nahdlatul Ulama in 2015. In 2016, Nahdlatul Ulama also firmly rejected unilateral decision of the United States, which recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, which was followed by the transfer of the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. So the Nahdlatul Ulama was very concerned about the decision of the Israel, to use the Jerusalem as their capital, national capital, and supported by the United States. So the Nahdlatul Ulama saw this agreement and dissatisfaction about this decision, in particular also decision of the United States to support the Jerusalem as the Israeli capital. And we can see the recommendations issues in Muamar Nahdlatul Ulama 33rd in Jombang 2016, and also issued by the National Committee of Nahdlatul Ulama, signed by the chairman PH.D. Agil Sirot, consists of about 9 recommendations, but I can show the 5 important recommendations. The first recommendation is forming a special team to deal with the international problems, especially the Palestinian issue, so that the Nahdlatul Ulama involvement in this issue is more sustainable. So there is a recommendation for the Nahdlatul Ulama to form special body or special organizations under the Nahdlatul Ulama to deal with the Palestinian issue, to show our support of the Nahdlatul Ulama. And the second, encouraging and gathering support intensively in the form of diplomacy, strengthening the people-to-people relationship, and financial support for the Palestinian cause by sticking to the dialogue and peaceful approach. So it is very clear, and the Nahdlatul Ulama emphasize the role of the dialogue and peaceful approach in order to support any initiative to solve the problem in Palestinian by emphasizing the dialogue and peaceful approach, and always very intensive to give the kind of diplomacy, strengthening the people-to-people relationship, as well as the financial support for the Palestinian cause. And the third, urging the Indonesian government. So this recommendation is directed to the government to systematically take concrete steps. So how then we see that the government of Indonesia show their commitment, very clear commitment in supporting the Palestinian people in any international forum to support the Palestinian independence. And the fourth, if the Israel continue to occupy the Palestine, the Indonesian government should take the firm step. So it is also very clear sign to the Israel to stop any kind of the occupation project. So if this done by the Israel, the Nahdlatul Ulama urge the government of Indonesia to take the firm step. If necessary, it should have no any relationship with the Israel, the state of Israel. So it's very clear. So for instance, the president of the Sukarno always says that there is no recognition to Israel before the Palestinians gain its independence. So this has become prerequisite. In order to have relationship with the Indonesia, first the Israel should recognize and give independence to the Palestinian. Of course, this statement, I argued that also because of the close relationship of Nahdlatul Ulama at the time with the president of Sukarno. And the fifth, appeal to the community group in Palestine, especially the Muslim group, to unite together to fight for independence of the Palestinian state. So the Nahdlatul Ulama urged an appeal to all people in Palestine to unite together in order to gain independence as the Palestinian state and any effort to liberate of the Palestinian people from the occupation of the Israel. So this is a very important recommendation, I think, issued by the Nahdlatul Ulama in order to respond the development and any event what happened in Palestine and to show our strong support to the Palestinian struggle. So I think that's all that I can share, historical background, how the Nahdlatul Ulama in the very beginning show their support the Palestinian people struggle and still continue intensively and consistently support the struggle of the Palestinian by emphasizing a dialogue and peace approach. Thank you very much. Wallahu muwafiq ila aqwamit thariq. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much, Mr. Yon Mahmudi, for your presentation. And it is a really insightful presentation for us as Nahdiyin students to know more about the historical background between Nahdlatul Ulama and the Palestinian struggle. As a moderator, I can say that Nahdlatul Ulama is as an organization has a firm state to support the Palestinian independence since even before the Indonesian independence itself. So Nahdlatul Ulama has taken a significant and important decision and also support for the Palestinian people. Thank you, Mr. Yon Mahmudi. And for the next presentation, we will hear from the Excellency Mr. Muamar Musthafa Hasan Milhem as the first Secretary of the Embassy of the State of Palestine in Jakarta. To Mr. Muamar Musthafa Hasan Milhem, the time is yours.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وصحبه أجمعين. رمضان مبارك عليكم. I would like first to appreciate Nahdlatul Ulama, and I would like to beginning with expressing my gratitude for giving me the opportunity to speak about the struggling of Palestinian people against Israel occupation that extend for more than 70 years. And until now, people are still struggle and strive to achieve our Independence Day. Nahdlatul Ulama, since its inception until now, hasn't stopped supporting the Palestinian people. Even Indonesian people not stop supporting us in every field, This is what I feel when I am here, since I came to Indonesia until now. This I'm talking about 7 years ago. So the Palestinian people to gaining their sovereignty over their colonized land from the Zionists. So I would like to point out what Nahdlatul Ulama movement has done to support the struggle of the Palestinian people. Nahdlatul Ulama Executive Board, PCINU, under the leadership of PH Mahfouz Siddiq, on 12 November 1938, or Ramadan 19th, called all Islamic mass organization in Indonesia to take a firm stance against Zionist occupation. Nahdlatul Ulama called all Muslims to help Palestinians struggle for their religion and national freedom against Israel. My dears, they also support the establishment of Palestinian Fund as a charity to help Palestinian people, which is we are appreciated. The PCINU conducted Rajabiyya Week movement, which held on Rajab 27th during the celebration of Isra Miraj. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. This is related of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Nahdlatul Ulama also played a major role in establishing hospitals in Gaza Strip and the West Bank. So all the people, Palestinian people, actually appreciated these steps, because actually we are needed for these steps, because we are poor of many resources, because Israel occupied and Israel closed all the outlets, and there's no any access actually without control of Israel. Even if someone like to leave to Jordan, which is located in the border from the east side of Palestine, or from the other side from Gaza Strip to Egypt. So it means we need a permit from Israel. So it means Israel controlled everything, even the water resources. Even if I wanted to import something from outside, this is controlled about the customs of Israel and security. And there's many barriers actually if you wanted to move from city to city. For example, if I wanted to go from the south, which is my city, I'm from Hebron. This is from the south of Palestine. If I wanted to go to Ramallah, which is the center, in the center location, sometimes I cannot access without permit from Israel or any permit from them. So it means they controlled everything. They also Nahdlatul Ulama also played a major role in establishing hospitals, as I mentioned, in Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Our dear students, in the interest of Nahdlatul Ulama to raise your awarenesses of the Palestinian people and their continuous struggle to obtain their sovereignty over their land. So I would like to talk to you, because you are the future and your voice is very important. So that's why I'm gonna to talk with you about the suffering of our Palestinian people from the injustice inflicted upon them by the Zionist occupation and their denial of their most basic rights and the disposition of their lands from them by continuing to establish settlements on Palestinian lands. Plus, Israel continues to practice all forms of racial discrimination by denying the Palestinian people the performance of religious rights, continuing to uproot and expel all the harvest agriculture like olive trees and others, demolishing homes, and by a policy of collective punishment. This is my message to you, because I know you are the future and your voice will be heard for all the people in Indonesia and out of Indonesia. Dears, today the Palestinians succeeded in forcing the Zionist occupation forces to withdraw from Damascus Gate in center Jerusalem after it was closed to the Palestinians since the beginning of the holy month of Ramadan. Israel actually, this is in the recent time, prohibited the people to go to pray in Al-Aqsa. And there's many of the Palestinian people who reside in Jerusalem make like intifada, like the first intifada and the second intifada against Israel, and enforce them to remove all the iron gates or electronic gates. This is what happened now in Palestine. So my message is to you, to convey, my dear student, to convey your message to all international organizations and international forums about the Israel violations in Palestine. Dears, today and in front of this presence, I would like to present to you the conditions under which the Palestinian people's struggle is going through the condition of the coronavirus pandemic, where Israel has prevented Palestinians from obtaining the corona vaccine. As Israel continues to racism against the Palestinian people by not sharing vaccines. Human rights groups around the world held Israel responsibility for not providing vaccines to the Palestinian people, either in West Bank or in Gaza strips. Just now we got it 5,000 vaccine. This is for employees, and just waiting, and China provided us after the pressure from the international world 100,000. This is we give for, you know, about to the doctors, to nursery. This is in the first line, which is they playing a very important role for the patients. Also, dears, also Israel took advantage, which is, this is a very important point, of the countries free access to the vaccine by pressuring them to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, like the Czechs, Honduras, Guatemala, and this is what actually happened. They forced them to move their embassies from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and to recognize Jerusalem as its capital of Israel, which is this is broke the international law. This is actually in the also in the recent time. Here I would like to highlight the limited resources available to the Palestinians to confront this pandemic in light of the Israel blockade. The Israel occupation controls all outlets, as I mentioned before, which worsens the situation. So we have really now a very worse situation. You know, coronavirus now spread in all over the world and in Palestine, and we have limited resources and just we asking, or we order from many of the countries just to, they provided us a vaccine. We hope so one day it will be coming soon and just help our people in from this pandemic. Thank you. So finally, it has been a pleasure being with all of you today. Thank you. Ramadan Kareem. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for Mr. Muamar, Musthafa, Hasan, Milhem for your presentation. And we know that current situation in Palestine is under the occupation of Israel is really bad because of the pandemic. And we know that the vaccine distribution in Palestine is blockaded by the Israeli government. And this is a serious situation for all the Palestinians, and also getting concerned by Muslims and citizens from all over the world, also for Indonesians and for Nahdlatul Ulama students in Indonesia. Thank you very much, Mr. Muamar. So for this session, we have a question and answer session for all participants who want to ask to Mr. Yon Mahmudi or to Mr. Muamar Milhem. For all participants who want to ask, you can drop your question in chat or raise your hand, and you can also ask in Indonesian, and I will translate it to English if the question is for Mr. Muamar, and I will translate it back to Indonesian if from the answer of Mr. Muamar. Okay.
Excuse me, please.
Yeah, Mr.
I like you to share my video, which is I sent it to you, please.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I will share the video.
Thank you.
أي جمر أكتوي بعد الفراق واشق في بحر المآسي من دموع في المآب
كيف لا تبكي عيوني من حنين الاشتياق كلما هبت رياح هزني ذاك العناب
كيف أنساك حياتي ذاك والله محال إن قلبي تعتريه لوعة تأتى الفصال لوعة أبقت فؤادي اشتعال واحتدام لوعة منها عيوني لا يواتيها منام
هذا يوم عيدنا، هذا يوم مقصودنا، الحمد لله.